I see me. Hold on. Can you say something?
Okay. Pinocchio was a wooden
Hey.
boy.
Well, that was
Hmm.
that was something. I don't know. That was a good. It was a good one. All right, we're here. We're live.
Yeah.
Hello,
Yay.
Ryan.
Hi.
How are you?
Yes.
How are you? Tell me about week.
I'm doing good.
Yeah.
Week is chugging along. Just like a blur of every other week. Like this is a weird time because like there's no holidays really right now to
Right.
like break everything up. So like at the end of February to like April. Well, I mean, hang on. It was Easter recently, so I can't really say that. But I mean like from the end of February to like Easter weekend, like there's nothing. So like everything just blurs together and
Yeah.
it's like, "Oh, it's the start of the year." Then it's like, "Oh crap, we're already like 4 or 5 months into the year already."
Yeah. It's the year is going like suspiciously fast. I totally get it. I'm not ready for like I have a holiday coming up, and for me that holiday is still months away, like months
Yeah.
away, and it's not. It's like 2 weeks. I was reminded today, which is not okay. Do you want to get started, Ryan?
Yeah, I mean, if you're ready, I'm ready. Let's go.
Shall I lead?
Yes, by all means.
Awesome. Hey everybody, welcome to You Have to Watch This podcast. I'm Devon,
I'm Ryan.
and I'm Devon. And I'll never not do that. I love it. And today we are here to talk about the 2008 movie Ip Man, a movie that I have seen in college and Ryan has not yet seen. I'm presuming Alan hasn't seen it, and Alan probably still hasn't seen it. Alan is MIA today, so today you get Ryan and I. So before we dig into it, what we're going to do first is we'd like to talk about things that we've seen in pop culture this week. So we're going to go ahead and start by going through the part of the podcast we call We Watch This. Ryan, what have you watched this week? Oh, Ryan, we lost your audio. While he's fixing his audio, While he's fixing his audio, I can very quickly tell you all what I watched this week. Nothing. Uh, in fact, I actually finished the movie for the podcast, my rewatch of it. I finished about 10 minutes ago. So I just squeaked by watching the movie for this podcast, let alone anything on top of that.
No, okay. Well, that's good because I just watched the movie last night
Oh, perfect.
myself. Like, to be honest, I almost forgot.
Oh, no.
So like, I didn't get to bed until like 12:30 last night
Oh,
because I like
jeez.
completely like I almost completely forgot about it. So the movie that I watched, and I need back to our yeah you what you wish for, and this movie and another one are going to be the next two movies I make you guys watch
Really?
because they are available, and both these movies, Kristen and I had me watch two movies that she thought I would like back to back,
Hmm.
like 2 weekends ago,
Yeah.
and I was floored by the one, and I have never been more out of my skin with anxiety ever in my life than I have watching this movie. The what is what you wish for. All I'm going to tell you, because I'm going to have you watch it,
Okay.
is one character starts off the movie when like you first start getting to know them. He he tells his buddy about how awesome his job is, what he does, how much money he makes, like what he has to do, and his buddy's like, "Man, that sounds amazing," and his the character just kind of like sits back, grabs a beer, and goes, "Yeah, if you say so." And then at the end of the movie, the character that guy was telling it to
Hmm.
goes through the same speech with someone else.
Oh, wow.
This I'm getting like the chills thing
Oh, I
just
love
like
it.
rethinking about this one. And this isn't the one that floored me. The other movie floored me. And I'm not going to tell you what that one was until we get to me telling you guys to watch it. So,
That's very
yeah,
cool.
I highly recommend what is what you wish for. Highly recommend it.
That's very cool. This is a movie I hadn't even heard of before. Is it a newer one?
Um I think it was made within the past. If it wasn't made this year, it was definitely made by at least 2023, I think.
Okay.
What
So it's like
you
fairly recent, like within a couple of
wish?
years.
2023. Yeah. Yeah, 2023 is when it came out.
Yeah, all right. Well, I'm excited to watch this one. I know that she
It's got an
typically makes you
80%
watch.
on Rotten Tomatoes.
That's really good. That's very good
Yeah.
for Rotten Tomatoes. I know she typically
hmm
makes you watch horror movies. Am I allowed to know, like, is this a horror movie?
They're both thrillers.
Okay,
Like I would
perfect.
consider them both thrillers.
Yeah,
I think the argument could be made for horror,
yeah.
uh, but mainly for like physicalness.
Okay, sure. Like physical horror, like body horror almost,
Yeah,
but not like
yeah,
Tusk.
yeah. No, no, no. Not like Tusk. Like this is. I mean, I would say What You Wish For could be more of a horror than the other one,
Okay.
but the other one touches on a topic that like I wrote a college paper about. So like I want to have my soapbox moment. So like
Well, I'm so curious about that. Okay, good. I'm excited for both of these, and these are
yeah.
the next two you're gonna make us watch.
Yeah, like
Good,
I'm
good.
pushing Hyde back.
You're
I'm
pushing everything
pushing
back for
like
this.
yeah,
That's awesome. Wow. Okay, these must have left a heck of an impression. I
yeah.
don't want to talk too much more about it because I have no idea what's in store and want to go into it very fresh and don't want to ask too much. So, with that, unfortunately, that's all that we watched this week, but that means that we can get to the topic at hand a lot faster. The topic at hand in this case being 2008, so let me make that a little bigger 2008's Ip Man. This movie is, and let me kind of pull up some basic facts about the movie itself. The movie itself was made in 2008. It was directed by Wilson Yip. It stars Donnie Yen, Simon Yam, and Louis Fran. It essentially follows the movie of Ip Man, who, for those of you that don't know who that is, that was one of Bruce Lee's mentors. They mention it very briefly at the end of the movie. Uh, I have so many facts about this movie, so many references that the movie makes, so much to talk about this movie. But before we get into the nitty gritty of all of this, let's hear some hot takes. So first off, Ryan, have you ever heard of this movie?
Um, I had seen I had seen stuff for it.
Okay.
I had never been around anyone who has like actually said the title of it until I met you. But like I've seen its poster before,
Okay.
and like in like internet stuff, but like I've never heard anyone say the title.
Gotcha.
So
So this
yeah.
was a movie that I had originally seen in college, and then upon watching it again this time for the podcast, I very quickly realized this is the first time I've ever watched it sober. And I've seen it a few times in college, if that tells you what my college was like. I remember absolutely loving this movie in college, and I am not going to tell you what my rewatch is like this time, finally sober. But Ryan, how did you feel about it, man?
A lot like I there is a lot that goes into my feelings about this movie, but
Okay.
generally positive.
Okay.
Like to the point to the point where when it was over, I looked up like I didn't like I watched the trailers for the second one.
Yeah.
I watched the trailer for the second one. Because it was like 12:30 at night. There was no way I was going to start a second movie with having to
Right.
go to work in the morning. Um, but definitely positive, and we can, I'm sure we'll be talking about why. So
Yes, absolutely we need to. So, I don't know if you knew this, by the way, but in total, there are 12 Ip Man movies. So, this certainly launched a franchise. Now, whether all 12 of those movies are worthwhile to watch, is kind of neither here nor there. We'll talk about that later. But let's just focus specifically on this one. Now, the movie itself follows the eponymous Ip Man, who practices a type of martial art called Wing Chun. And we can get into the history of Wing Chun if you really want, but essentially what happens is he is a martial arts master that won't take any students. The Japanese invade China right around World War II, and he is essentially forced to use Wing Chun and to fight to help both reunite the village and to help to push the Japanese out of the village itself. This is very loosely based on real events that have happened. I thought was particularly interesting. But before I dig into kind of more specifics of the movie, one of the things I think is always interesting is, Ryan, what is your history with kung fu movies in general?
Well, I've seen two Bruce Lee movies.
Okay, which ones?
Um, I can't remember.
Enter
The
the Dragon.
one, I will explain them, so then you can help me with this.
Okay.
So the one I don't even think was a really finished movie. It was the one where he was like it was kind of like Mortal Kombat. They go to an island and then they go in a tower.
It's Enter the
and
Dragon.
Go up.
Yep.
Okay.
100%
Okay.
Enter the Dragon.
So I've seen that one.
Uh-huh.
And then there was another one. No, there wasn't another one. It was just Enter the Dragon.
Okay.
Okay. So I've seen one.
Uh-huh.
I've seen one Bruce Lee movie. There was a time when there was a channel, I forget what channel it was when I was in high school, that showed like the real corny, like almost comedic kung fu movies where like they would throw their razor hats and you would see the string, like, like move the razor hat around. Like,
oh yeah.
I saw a handful of those. And I think the one comedy one about like the fist.
Kung Pao Enter the Fist.
I think so.
Because that was one of the ones that I had seen prior to this movie. So
is that the nunchuck squirrels?
Yes, it is. Absolutely.
Okay, then yeah.
It's that that movie's so funny because I had also seen that movie first, Kung Pao Enter the Fist, and it's meant to be a send up of martial arts and kung fu movies, and I just missed all the references and just did the funny, like, oh, that's a funny thing, without catching the actual like specific references that they were making. Also, I think you're talking about Spike TV. That's the one that used to air all of the old cheesy kung fu movies.
Yeah. Okay.
Because I had to Google it, but I have a distinct memory of that as well. And it's interesting because your experience with those kung fu movies was roughly the same as mine going into it. So with that in mind, what did you think of the kung fu and the fighting specifically in the movie?
Well, the fighting was good, and one thing that popped into my head from like the very start of the movie was Bruce Lee, because they show him using one of those wooden practice dummies with the spokes, and I've watched 3 or 4 documentaries on Bruce Lee. So as soon as they showed that brought up all of the probably 5 minutes worth of images of video of him using one of those things. Mm-hmm. So I was like, oh, okay, so this is going to be like a Bruce Lee style like martial artist. Got it. Because I have no idea that it was Wing Chun or the different types of kung fu there are.
Yeah.
Like I took Taekwondo as a kid.
Yeah, me too.
I know that there's karate centers. Like that's as far as I know when it comes to naming. But like the fighting was great. Like I would put this up with, was it Crouch Tiger, Hidden Dragon?
Yeah.
Was like visually stunning, not just for the fighting, but for like the way that it was shot. This movie, it gave me the same feeling, but because of the choreography and the fighting, was just really good. But other than that, I kind of took it as kind of like a light-hearted, almost like I feel like the people who made this movie were like, okay, so we want to like tiptoe up to the line of this almost being considered a comedy, but not go over it.
Yes, and there were definitely parts like that.
Mm-hmm. And like the opening of the movie, the guys from the mountains come down, they challenge all the masters, they go to the guy's house because they say he's the best one in town, and the wife is like, don't break anything.
Yeah.
And then he ends up breaking, I think, like 1 or 2 vases, whatever.
Yeah.
And the kid comes out on his tricycle. and
Yeah.
like rides out between them and stops them. And he says, "Mom says to get it over with before." Uh, Mom says to get it over with before he breaks everything, and
Yes.
there's and then just kind of like rolls away. And the guy looks so offended by
I
that.
know,
Like
it's
the guy
so
from the mountains
funny.
looks so offended.
Yeah, or the fact that like anytime he breaks something, he goes, "I'll pay." Like,
Yeah,
it's
like,
such a fun, and like the fact that after that at some point he like pulls out his sword, right, and
yeah,
Ip Man responds with a feather duster, and like that is so
yeah.
fun. Like I like there, you're right. There are a lot of like very light-hearted comedic elements to this. For how, I mean, I guess comparatively dark the second act gets.
Oh no, it gets serious
Yeah.
quick. Like it gets real serious real quick.
So what were the well? I'm gonna touch on this. It gets serious real quick stuff in a moment, but I'm not ready to tell you about it yet. But how
Okay.
did you feel about that part of the movie where the Japanese invaded? Ip Man gets kicked out of his house. He now has to live in squalor. He's living off rice rations.
Yeah, so I recently there was a guy there was a guy I work with, and about like 3, 4 months ago, he was going through like a World War II Japan versus China
Yeah.
like history dive. He was telling me about it, and to be honest, like as an American, when you watch the History Channel or when you learn about World War II, it's always like Japan started their own war against China and then they attacked us. And then all you hear about is like our campaign against them
You hear
and literally
nothing about
nothing
it in
about
China.
China.
Yeah,
Except
exactly.
for, yeah, except for that one squadron that we like lent pilots and
Oh
planes
yeah.
to that had tiger faces or
Yeah.
like the dragon faces painted on them. Like
Mm.
that's literally it. So like he was telling me some stuff, so I decided to look up some things. And holy cow, yeah, no, Axis of Evil stuff, like that definitely matches to what was going on in,
Yeah.
Europe at the time. So given that information, when I saw the year that this was taking place in, I was like, I wonder if World War II gets brought up in this. And then when they did and they were showing things, I'm like, okay, this is serious. But at the same time, this is like a Chinese movie.
Yeah.
So one thought that I had was they could have gone a bit grittier than this, but then I thought, but Chinese censorship's really strong. So
Yeah.
like that's one of those things that like went through my head, and I want to talk about that aspect of this
We
movie
got it.
later on because I feel like it's important. I
It
feel
is.
like-
Absolutely it is. Well, okay, so before getting to that topic, was there any problems that you had with the movie itself? Just still speaking in generalities before we start getting really into the nitty-gritty.
Honestly, no, and that's
Yeah.
what I was so surprised about this movie. Like, it's a good, like, it's good, solid kung fu movie.
Mm-hmm.
Is it the best movie I've seen like since 2025 started? No, it's
Right.
not. But when it comes to the kung fu genre of the, very minimal of what I've seen, it's definitely at the top of my list
Yeah.
because it's a very simple story. It's a good story, and they don't mess it up, and they
Right.
don't make any major mistakes. Like, I can't really think of one thing that I didn't like about the movie.
I think and I completely agree. On the second rewatch, the movie does hold up. The thing that I didn't realize until this watch, and this is going to be so silly, but it reflects the state in which I saw it. I didn't catch that Ip Man ever was Bruce Lee's master at any point.
Hmm. Yeah.
So that means that B, the ending, I thought he died because they almost pull a bit of a bait and switch with you at the end, where it ends with him getting shot after the big fight. He falls down off of the thing, and then the rest of his story is told via text that I have clearly never read once in my life. And I've
Yeah.
seen this movie like 3 times now. So I just always, literally, until like today, I was like, yeah, he dies in the end. Nope, definitely doesn't die in the end. He goes on to live a very
Yeah.
long life.
Yeah, no, I had like, I mean, of course Bruce Lee had to learn this stuff from somewhere,
Yeah.
and I'm sure that on the documentaries that I watched, they mentioned that Bruce Lee was trained by one of the top martial artists in like Chinese history. Like I'm sure they went into that. I
Uh-huh.
just don't remember it because the
Right.
last time I saw one of those, like 25, maybe.
Yeah.
So that puts me at 2010. Puts me at
Right. So it's been a while.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's been a while.
Um, was there anything you particularly liked about the movie then? Before we get into any kind of specifics.
I really enjoyed the lead actor, the guy who plays
Donnie
Ip
Yen.
Man. Yeah, and I also like. There's not one character that I didn't enjoy in this movie, to be completely honest.
Mm-hmm.
Like the only character that I almost didn't was that I would answer with I didn't like this character. I don't know why he was in it.
Yeah.
Was the guy that watched the first fight and then started to blab at everyone about what he watched.
Oh, yeah.
Like
Yep.
until his character came back in
Yeah.
and they did with him what they did, he would have been my answer to he was the only one I didn't like.
Yeah.
But I get they were doing with him now.
Mm-hmm.
Like and it was a good scene.
Agreed.
So
you did recognize Donnie Yen though from other things, right?
he looked familiar.
Mm.
I couldn't put my thumb on where he was actually from, but it was so late at night when I was watching this. It was like, I need to focus. If I don't focus, I'm going to end up, it's like, I'm going to go to IMDb, and then I'm going to go to the other movies that he was on, and then I'm going to just muscle memory, open up Facebook, and then go to Instagram, and then an hour and a half is going to go by, and the movie's going to be over, and I'm going to be like, shit.
So I can help you out. He was Sharut in Rogue One.
Ah, okay. Yes, he was.
And this is one of the reasons why I think, right, they make Sharut's main weapon in Rogue One a big pole. Or essentially a big stick. I think it's a callback to this movie. I really do.
I would not be surprised. I honestly wouldn't be surprised. That and like okay, so I have his Wikipedia pulled up.
Yeah.
I only read a tiny bit of it today when I was on break at work.
Yeah.
How much have you read about this, like the actual guy?
Oh my god, I can tell you so much about the actual guy. What do you want to know?
Okay, so real quick, you don't have to go too far into it. Like,
okay.
On like a ranked scale.
Yes.
Is he like mythically like the like the Davy Crockett, Paul Bunyan of China? Like, is that kind of like the role he fills?
It's very
in their
close.
Culture?
Yeah, so basically one of the things that they said at the end of the film was 100% correct, where he is one of the main originators of Wing Chun as a martial art itself. Basically, there are two major masters in Wing Chun. The first one is obviously going to be Ip Man, but then the second one, I believe, is someone named Mui. Specifically, those two people like have the largest students or largest student bodies specifically under them. So it's he started a lot, and also Wing Chun itself kind of popularized, especially through Bruce Lee, popularized the notion of Chinese martial arts, and as opposed to Korean or Japanese martial arts, which I think is particularly interesting. But are you interested at all in some of the historical accuracies or inaccuracies of the movie?
I have a feeling, given what I think half this movie was, there's going to be a handful of inaccuracies that are half truths.
Give me a ranked list. What do you think? Like, where do you think the movie sits in terms of like inaccuracies?
I would say about at like it's gonna be around 55%.
Okay, you know what? That's pretty spot on.
Yeah. Okay.
So, it just in very broad strokes, the beginning part of the movie, absolutely right. Ip Man was wealthy. He had a mansion. His son, the oldest son, the one that rides the tricycle in, was actually a coordinator on the movie itself. And he said the beginning part was very, very correct. The difference is their mansion wasn't quite that big. But they did have a mansion.
Okay.
Ip Man didn't do nothing all day. Ip Man was a policeman. So that... Because then one of the things I wondered in the movie is, like, how did he get the money in the house? Did he just fight and earn it? Because it just seems like he's like a... Oh, I lost your audio again, Ryan.
Money Chinese family.
There it is. That's
There we
probably,
go.
yep.
Okay.
I think you might be right
That's what
though.
I figured he was.
Yeah.
Like I just figured it was like old money Chinese family type deal. I said that like 7 times. So if anyone's listening to the audio of this, it's like, why did he say that 7 times? It's because
I
my mic cut out and I don't know when anyone can hear it until someone tells me they can hear
I just caught it
it.
now. Yeah. But so yeah, so he was that. It turns out he did actually flee the city that he was living in
Okay.
Foshan. He did flee Foshan. But he didn't flee Foshan the year that the movie said he did, and he didn't flee Foshan because the Japanese invaded. He fled Foshan specifically a little bit before that because they were in the middle of the Chinese Civil War at the moment, and
Yeah.
the communists won the Chinese Civil War, which is very bad for him. So he actually fled, and he didn't end up living in destitution like it shows in the movie. He actually lived with a former student named Kwok Fu. When he learned that they were invading Foshan and that the communists were essentially ruling China, so he went over there and lived in relative luxury during the Chinese occupation or Japanese occupation, instead of living in squalor. He was approached by some Japanese people, and they did ask them to teach them, but generally speaking, the entire end of the movie, the big cinematic fight, that generally didn't happen. They said maybe he did actually fight, like, a soldier or two to show them what he could do, but it didn't, like, cinematically change the state of the war, didn't cause an uprising. It was just a nice little sparring session that happened at one point or the
Yeah.
other.
Yeah, because this movie, and this is something that we'll get into
Yeah.
deeper if you want to talk about other stuff first. Like, it's funny watching another country's propaganda through cinema
Yes.
as an American, because to us, like, we did Red Dawn. We had a guest on the show. We watched Red Dawn, and my big thing about movies like that, and even some movies that I like personally myself, I know straight up that, like, this is in some way U.S. political identity propaganda for the masses to watch and to identify with and get a sense of patriotism from. Like, that's what that's what some movies are
Yeah.
for, because like you got Red Dawn, you got Top Gun, you've got other movies that are in the same vein. And I'm watching this, and it's getting into the whole, like, the occupation, the way that he's handling himself, the way he calls out others for the way they're handling themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking to myself, like, this is, and, like, I grabbed my phone and I Googled, is Ip Man Chinese propaganda, like, film? And it came back with, like, some things about some of the later movies
Mm-hmm.
that have come out after this one about that. But this one was just kind of just like a general sense of, like, what the Chinese identity,
Yeah.
like, what they want it to be. And that's why he kind of turns into, like, a superhuman in, like, some aspects of what he does. Like, he basically has superpowers at some point in some of the later films that
Oh,
I read. So,
I'm sure. Yeah. I mean, but you're exactly right. And this is, in some ways, it is framing the Chinese identity at this point in time, and it's putting a
yeah.
very fine bar around. Yes, there were some people that did side with the Japanese because they believed it was the right thing to do, but the Chinese spirit at the time was more in line with where Ip Man was. And generally
Yeah.
speaking, even the people that did side with the Japanese at some point understood that they did wrong. And
Yeah, which
I
is what they showed.
exactly. And I love that. I love that lean. And I love that lean because, like, especially living abroad, right? And in talking to other cultures, it's very interesting to me to hear their stories or their national stories about what they say about World War II, about what they say about the 2008 stock market crash, about what they say.
Mhm.
And it's so interesting to gain that perspective because it's not a perspective that you largely get. So like World War II, for example, my lean has always been, well, Europe was trying and then America came in and finished the job. And
Yeah,
most people here are like, no.
because that's what we were taught.
Yeah, of course
That's
it
what we were
was.
taught.
Yeah. And
Like
yeah.
we literally just was like we the US just supplied everyone.
Mm-hmm.
In reality, we were able to produce faster than any other country
Yeah.
because we weren't bombed into oblivion yet like every other country involved in the war.
Yeah.
Like we were the only ones that could mass produce stuff. That's why you see video of like British tank crews driving Shermans
Yeah.
because like
We did that.
they couldn't produce their tanks. We could produce ours. We
Mm-hmm.
could produce.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. I mean, hell, even a couple blocks down the road from me, the fence posts on the houses are actually old World War II stretchers used from the Blitz, and they didn't have anything to do with them after the war, so they made them fences. Like that's how like part of the culture that is here, and that's not a
Yeah.
perspective I've ever gotten. And it's one of the things that watching it as a sober adult, watching Ip Man, was really interesting to see because
Yeah.
I originally had watched this for the action, for the the fun kung fu, and for the silly jokes of the kid riding in on a tricycle, right? But watching it again
Mm.
as an adult, it was your same reaction. It was like, oh, this is talking about their national identity in a time of crisis.
Yeah.
I love it. I
Yeah.
absolutely love it.
Yeah. And same here. Like it was really interesting. The, the one thing that I really like about these martial arts films is when you get a character like the main character in this
Hmm.
that is which is very much a docile man or woman. They keep to themselves. They don't want any type of like they don't want conflict. They hate conflict. They want everything to go smoothly because like they haven't I almost feel like every major martial artist just has really bad anxiety and they learn martial arts to control that anxiety so that they can bring it out when it's like need be, but when it's not needed, what they want is just everything to be like smooth sailing. They just
Right.
want calm waters
Right.
100% of the time.
Right. No, I mean, and it could be right because the way that they always come up to Ip Man is the very structured manner, and people say things like, "Oh, would you like to, would you like to practice? Would you like to spar?" And that is the
Yeah.
start of a very practiced conversation for him.
Yeah. Um, One of the characters that I feel like really did a good job, and one of the actors I feel that did a really good job of kind of like standing out when they needed to. Like, I guess I've heard Alan use the term like eat through a scene. I'm not
Yeah.
sure if I'm using it in the right term that he does, but his wife.
Yeah.
Like every time she like spoke up, like it was very much like was it the it was like it was right at the beginning. The guy from the mountains go, "Oh, you fear your wife," and he's like, "No, I don't fear. I respect her."
Right.
And she's standing there, but then like at the same time, you know that like she kind of controls the narrative of what happens within the family dynamic, and he
Yeah.
just kind of goes along with it. Like that's like this is part of me putting my own spin on what was going on, and it made it humorous. Like I kind of saw it as it man has his hobby. It's martial arts. He likes to do it. They have money, so he can spend the time to do it. And as long as he has his martial arts and he has his house and he can do what he wants, he's happy.
Yeah.
He's content. That's all he needs. And I feel like she knows that, but she also wants what she wants out of the relationship. So like she kind of like nudges because like she even admits at the end. She was like, I nag him because like I'm always afraid that it might be the last time I see him, or
Mm-hmm.
like all of that. So like I just kind of found it funny that he was basically the stereotype, like not dumb husband, but just like the stereotypical guy that just wants to be like, I'm good.
Right.
Life
I'm,
is good. I'm
I'm
content.
gonna go hang out with
You
the
know.
boys and fight a bit. Like,
Yeah,
Yeah,
like
he
that's
really was though.
basically who he is.
And it's funny that like that's the portrayal of it, where I feel like in America, like that person would be portrayed as like, I don't know, like any of the dads in King of the Hill, if you've ever seen that show,
Yeah.
where like all they
Hmm.
really want to do is be standing by that fence drinking beer, going yep. But in the world of Ip Man, it's doing kung fu, which is
Yeah.
just incredible. And I did like that. I
Hmm.
did like that dynamic quite a lot. The him and his wife, I thought was particularly interesting. I could have had more character development on her, I think, but you know,
Oh yeah.
I mean,
100%.
wouldn't have passed the Bechdel
Um.
test, but you know.
So one of the things that I also wanted to touch on,
Mm-hmm.
and this something this is a reality for the time period, and it's a reality for what Japan at that time put China through. Um, the general, I was surprised, did not look as stereotypically depicted
Mm.
as what the other Japanese characters were. Besides the general, like the colonels
Yeah.
in the Japanese army, could have been pulled from American uh, propaganda posters from World War II, if you know what I
I
mean.
do.
And I'm pretty sure China had the same thing going because of just how they are against each other.
Yeah.
So it was just like there were times where like I would have a little smile on my face because of just knowing the history of like the way Japanese soldiers were depicted in like anti-Japanese propaganda posters from like the US and China with like the hat, the thin face, the circle glasses.
I mean, I
Like
literally just Googled Chinese World War II propaganda. It's exactly
yeah,
that.
like yeah. And so I found that I found that humorous as in 2008, like if a movie like this would have, I mean, they have made, Hollywood has made movies about World War II dealing with Japan, and they do a pretty good job of being realistic as to what the soldiers looked like and the fact of the
Yeah.
diversity of how, people in Asia look. And then you get this film from China, and like the characters are just right out of a propaganda poster,
Mm-hmm.
and that just made
Mm-hmm.
me laugh a little bit when I was watching the movie. I was like, "Ugh."
Ooh, yeah.
Like tensions still run deep a little bit, I
You
guess.
can tell there's still a bit of a raw nerve there.
Yeah,
Yeah, there
but then
was.
again, given what happened, I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, the one thing that they said, and this is interesting to me, at the very end of the movie, I don't know if where did you watch this, by the way? This might be important.
uh, I watched it at home on. I honestly forget
Was it
what.
Plex?
NBC. I don't
Oh,
get
okay.
Plex.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I watched
it was
it
on the
Plex.
Peacock app.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It might have been the translation that I had. I don't know if you had the same translation, but the end kind of text crawl, it implied that China defeated Japan and led to their surrender in World War II.
Okay, so the one that I do remember this. I remember reading it because I was like, should I Google these dates? I'm like, I'm too tired. I'm not going to.
Right. And I did
It
Google
said
some of the dates,
something.
but
Yeah, so it was like August 28th or 26th
yeah.
is when the war ended between the two of them. And the way it was worded, it was like on it was either the Japanese emperor like signed a non-conditional like surrender
Hmm.
on August 26th or 28th 1945, leading to the end of the war and Japan like leaving. I'm forgetting what the phrase was that China was mentioned, but yeah, it did seem like we pushed them out.
Right. It did, didn't it?
And to be honest, with the pressure that Japan was under from the U.S., basically getting it from the East and the West.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I know maybe 2% of what happened
Well, I'm the same.
between those two countries during the war. So, whatever they want to say, I'll take for now until I learn.
Well, it's how I
Like,
am. I mean, yeah.
I'm fine, whatever.
I found a website, because I did look it up. I found a website that says that it's slightly over exaggerated, that line, and that largely the two
Yeah.
reasons that China ended the war were threats from Stalin and threats from America, and specifically the two very bad things we did in Japan. They
Yeah.
said that China didn't offer much resistance at the time, specifically because of the state of their politics and the state of the country itself. Didn't offer too
Oh
much
yeah.
resistance to the Japanese, but I don't know the nitty gritty of it. But it goes to your
Yeah.
point of how the Japanese are depicted, how China's depicted, what the national spirit is. It feeds that narrative to end the movie in
Yeah.
that way.
hmm And one thing, and to get away from all of that
Yeah,
and get back into like the movie and like movie stuff,
yeah, yeah.
culturally, I realized how ignorant I am
What's that?
of what of what is traditionally Japanese style
Mm-hmm.
and what is traditionally Chinese style. Because
Mm.
before watching this, I watched half of the first episode of Shogun.
Shogun. Yeah.
I I wanted to watch it forever, and I finally was like, I'm gonna watch it, and then I was like, crap, I need to watch Ip Man. I forgot, and then I went and I started watching that. Now, granted, Ip Man is set in like the late 30s and then
Mm.
into the 40s and World War II, and Shogun is set in like the 1600s. You know, like Japanese empire era,
Right.
and so like styles are very different. But building and architecture is still pretty much kind of the same because they hold on to their traditions very much so over there, which is amazing.
Yeah.
And I love that fact. But like the gi
Mm.
or the outfit, the clothing that Ip Man and then the other masters were wearing, I didn't realize that that was more Chinese than it was Japanese. Again, from an American point of view, I feel like people who like made the Ninja Turtle cartoons and like the Three Ninja movies and like the Austin Power movies, anything when it comes to like Asian inspired stuff
Yeah.
inside as of an American film, they just grab whatever looks good.
Yeah.
So then you get someone wearing what I'm leaning to starting to think is a traditionally Chinese outfit
Mm.
in a Japanese style,
Right. In like that context.
aesthetic in a room. Yeah, and I was like, oh, okay, so that's Chinese.
Yeah.
This is Chinese. I'm going to assume they share this in common.
Right.
And so there's a lot that I'm still like, I have no clue. Like
Yeah.
I'm at the point where I'm learning that what I think I know, I don't.
I love that. Yes, no, but that's good. This is literally a psychological principle. This is good. This is the path of learning. I'm the same way though. To
Yeah.
be fair, I'm exactly the same way. I learned a lot watching the movie, and one of the scenes specifically that I want to call out with this is we see plenty of masters and students. How many times did you actually see the notion of like the black belt, the yellow belt, the red belt?
Only with the Japanese soldiers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
do you know why they added that scene in the movie?
With him you mean with him going to the like arena or
Yeah,
him
and like
going
fighting
to
all
that,
of
like,
the
gym?
Japanese soldiers in the gym.
Why did they add that in the movie?
Well, because it obviously wasn't fact, right? That didn't happen at all.
Yeah.
The whole reason they added that is because it was a visual and plot reference to a Bruce Lee movie, Fists of Fury. In it, Bruce Lee goes into a dojo and he beats up just about every single person in the dojo just as easily as Ip Man does in this. And their motivations are actually pretty similar as well. So in the movie, they both lost somebody very close to them, and they were essentially going there to kind of get revenge. And this was essentially to call back to, this is where Bruce Lee got it. This is the origin of that. Because again, didn't happen in real life, but it's a very cool like visual and plot callback to something very famous from Bruce Lee later.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, I thought it
Um,
was a very neat thing.
was the rolled up sleeves a callback to him too? Because I
Yes,
feel like I've seen
yes,
Bruce Lee with the rolled up sleeves,
yep.
and no one else in the movie did that.
No, it's specifically a callback to the Bruce Lee thing. And also, I thought it
Okay.
was cool. He would make a big deal out of it when he was drinking tea. You watched him like hold up his sleeve, grab the tea, then hold it up again.
Yeah.
And I feel like I've seen Bruce Lee do that too. And you could tell that a lot of
Yeah.
the character was built on. I mean, even as you had mentioned with him hitting the big wooden thing. I don't know what they're called. It's like a part I didn't look up.
Yeah. I
I,
I don't know what they're called either.
I don't know either.
Yeah.
But whoops, I knocked my camera. But the one thing I will say about the wooden thing though is I'm actually really grateful for. And this speaks to my ignorance, had no idea why anyone ever used that thing. Like to me, like
Yeah.
just doing like this on it like doesn't look like anything. But then they show you him doing that in a fight and then him practicing that and I went, "Oh, that's what that's for."
Yeah. Yeah, because I always assumed that it was to build up callus on your like contact parts
Right.
on your limbs. Like that's what I legit always thought that was for, and that's why like you would hit it hard enough to make a noise, meaning that you're slapping your skin against it, meaning you're toughening up your skin because it's a constant, like contact. And then they do an amazing sequence where they show like him fighting and then him practicing and just doing the same things.
Yeah.
Um, and one of the real funny things that I was thinking about too, and I know it's not Chinese, I know it's Japanese, but like anime, some of the
Oh, yeah.
older anime that I used to watch when I was a kid, I think it was like Fist of the North Star. I think it was like one of the like 70s or 80s ones
Mhm.
where like the guy would do punch like the pattern on someone's chest
Yeah.
and make like their eye explode or something.
Yeah.
like like the way that Ip Man was hitting these people on some of the like fights that he was doing was reminding me of that.
Yeah.
And then also I was thinking, I'm like, okay, but anime didn't come from China. It came from Japan. This is really similar. So like, but then again, Japan is not that far away from China. So at some point, these two countries had to have some type of peaceful relations
Right.
to where stuff crossed each other
Mm-hmm.
and to where things are similar. And it was one of those movies that made me think about things that I haven't thought about in a long time.
Yeah.
Or tried to like yeah. And so it was a fun watch because of it.
Well, I mean, the interesting thing, and one of the reasons that I think this happened specifically, is because at one point in his life, and it said it in the end text crawl, Ip Man moves to Hong Kong. And
Yeah.
Hong Kong at the time is owned by the UK. So he becomes a much more internationally consumable person
Yeah.
and a much more widely broadcast kung fu style. And I do wonder
Yeah.
how much Bruce Lee influenced the fighting style shown in those anime anyway, because that's a lot of people's first and biggest exposure to any kind of kung fu movie.
Yeah.
So I wonder.
Well, yeah. Well, that and I was telling Kristen about this, like about the movie. Like I was telling her about how like I was actually surprised by it, that that like I liked it a lot more than what I did, and she just looked at me and goes, "Are there any pandas in it?" I said, "No, there's no pandas in it." She goes, if it's not like Kung Fu Panda, I'm not interested. Granted, like this movie relies a lot on like action,
Yeah.
and that's something that I have come to like realize, that like Kristen likes story, she likes build up, she
Mhm.
likes development. When it comes to like like fight scenes,
Mm.
she can't. Like
Yeah.
if it's not over in 30 seconds, it's too long.
Yes. I know people like this,
So-
100%.
Yeah, and so like that's gonna keep me from wanting her to watch it, because
Yeah.
that's like half the movie
It is.
is like the fighting, and some of it like their sound guy's good.
Yeah.
He's breaking bones. It sounds like he's breaking bones.
Yeah. Yeah, the sound mixing in this movie is incredible.
hmm So the trailer for the next one shows him going up against like it it shows him going up against a British boxer,
Yep.
which I find funny. Now, I don't know if that actually happened or not. If he fought like a British boxer, um, I I read that I read that later on that like Ip Man kind of like is like a like a mythical figure for like China, so that
Hmm.
so like he's a stand-in for standing up against like other international superpowers. So like he goes against Britain. I
Yeah.
guess at some point he fights against like an American
Yeah.
somehow or some way. Um, but the concept of a boxing match, someone like ba- basically Bruce Lee versus a British boxer in like the 50s or late 40s.
Hmm.
To me is kind of difficult because like I know what the rules are in boxing.
Hmm.
I know what the rules are in the Olympics and for like international, like martial arts fighting. How does that work?
I mean,
What
honestly,
rules?
well, it's like it's really it's like making a movie in like, oh my gosh, in like 20 years about, or not even 20, maybe 20 or 30 years about David Beckham. And at the end of the third movie about David Beckham, they were like, he was so good. He even fought against a world famous field hockey player. Because like ultimately the aim of it is to get a ball in a net somewhere, and the point of it. Like,
Yeah.
and no, that never happened. That is famously a very made up scene. That never actually happened, and you're right, because Western style boxing and specifically Wing Chun do not
Yeah.
they, they're fighting,
So
and
like
that's kind of all it is, but they're not similar.
yeah, like I'm interested in watching the movie just to see how that plays out,
Yes,
just because I'm
yes.
curious how that works. But like you said, it's like David Beckham. It's like and then David Beckham 4, he goes up against the Stamford lacrosse team.
Well, right, yeah, it's exactly it. Or like,
like
he fought he soccers against the Steelers. It's like, all right, sure, yep, we got it. Oh, it's just, I love it. I love it. It almost feels like Rocky in some ways. Like,
yeah,
I don't know
it's their
this,
Rocky.
and
Yeah,
that's it. I don't know that this is true. It feels like Chinese Rocky, and in some ways, that's
yeah,
awesome. I love that.
yeah. So yeah, so as of right now, I'm taking this in as like what I've read, how many movies there. I thought there were just five after looking things up. I had no idea that there were 12.
It's a lot.
Um, I'm seriously just going to put him in as he is a mythical character the same way we have like Paul Bunyan, Davy
Yeah.
Crockett. There was that movie that had was it oh, I forget his name. The guy that drove railroad ties in, where he challenges the steam one and like he dies.
Yeah. What was his name?
I feel like I only like read his story once, and he was in that one movie where all of the mythical it was like mythical out west, like Western characters all come together to do
Yeah.
something. It was
John
a
Henry.
'90s
It was
movie.
John Henry.
John Henry. So like I kind of take Ip Man as of right now until I come across information that like says me no, it's not. And I'm like, okay, well, it's not. But as of right now, I'm thinking that with what I've read, Ip Man is basically like the Davy Crockett for like China.
You're not wrong.
That's
He
at
did
this
really,
moment,
yeah.
that's how I'm viewing
I
this.
mean, look, he did
Yeah,
really good things for Chinese martial arts. He did really
yeah,
good things specifically for Wing Chun. That's certainly true. But, was he the hero that turned the tide in World War II against the Japanese? No. Absolutely he wasn't. Did he train a whole village in Wing Chun so they could revolt against their oppressors? No. Nope.
no,
But, he was a really influential martial arts master, and that's undeniable. Like, he just was good.
yeah,
I think it's like those people that were like, and on top of everything else, Carnegie was such a great guy, and you're like, okay, maybe back off at that part. But honestly, that's all I got about the movie. Anything else about Ip
That
Man?
that's fine. It's just a good kung fu
It
movie.
is.
Like it is, and as far as I'm concerned, because I have seen other Chinese movies,
Mm,
I would say for 2008, it's a good depiction of like Chinese cinema for that time.
yeah.
So
What was your favorite
there's a
Chinese
lot
movie you've
going
seen?
for it. Mhm.
What's your favorite Chinese movie you've seen?
Uh, there's like three,
Okay.
and I'm keen on one
Oh,
of them.
because I don't know
But
many
like,
of them, to be fair.
I believe Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon is Chinese,
I
isn't it?
think so.
Okay, I've seen that one. I've seen this. And there's another one. It was a war movie. It was it was like their version of like a Marvel action movie without any superheroes.
Oh, that's cool.
I watched it late one night, and I think the U.S. was the villain in it. Like I think there was a plane that had like a weird American-looking symbol on the
I
wing.
love it.
But as of right now, it's definitely this, just
Yeah,
because of like the other ones are kind of lengthy, and they're kind of like they're lengthy and corny.
sure.
They're not both lengthy and corny. They're both lengthy. One of them's a lot better than the other, but I would definitely put this one over those two if I wanted to like watch something from China.
That's awesome. I love that.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, I think that's all we have on Ip Man for today. So, Ryan, correct me if I'm wrong. Next week is Alan's movie?
It is Alan's. I was going to reach out to him
Mm.
to see if he had his a movie lined up. Um, we could just try to do this now. Um,
I think he's at a school function. So,
yeah,
maybe we'll just find out later, which is totally fine. You guys will find
yeah,
out when we find out, which will be really exciting. Um,
yeah.
but before next week, because we'll be back probably Tuesday, if not also Wednesday of next week. But before that time, if you're just thirsty for more, you have to watch this podcast. You can find us wherever you get podcasts. We are on Spotify. We are on Apple Podcasts. We're on Pandora. You can follow us on our socials. You have to watch this pod on Twitch. You have to watch this podcast on Instagram. And YHTWT podcast on Facebook rolls off the tongue, but it's also right there in the top corner. You can take a look there. Also, a lot of our stuff's on YouTube as well. Take a look there. It's a lot of really great things. You can there, yeah, one of these things above us. But otherwise, for you have to watch this podcast. I'm Devon,
I'm Ryan.
and I'm Devon, and I'm never gonna stop. And thank you